95% of the world's watches are made here, including the one you're wearing right now. Many big brand watches are produced or sourced for parts from here. This place, Shenzhen City, the world's watch capital. Where do these high-end watches really come from? Are those $20,000 Rolexes you see on people's wrists actually handcrafted Swiss treasures? Or did they quietly roll off a factory line in China, squeezed in next to 5,000 others just like them? You pay $4,400 for a Tudor Black Bay monochrome. You pay almost $10,000 for a Rolex Submariner, and a Royal Oak Extra Thin costs around $36,000.
Cheap is not a word that applies.
The watch is often blurred. However, when you come to Guangzhou, you cannot see any problem just by looking at the appearance. What you need to be careful about is that the low quality movement inside will be sold at a high price.
My suggestion is you can try it first or buy it for a legal way. I'm Sean. See you next time.
You pay $4,400 for a Mid-S Tudor Black Bay monochrome. You pay almost $10,000 for a Rolex Submariner. And a Royal Oak Extra Thin, it costs like $36,000.
Cheap is definitely not a word that applies. The luxury watch market is a $20 billion industry built on heritage, craftsmanship, and exclusivity. At least that's what they want you to believe. When you think of luxury watches, your mind probably jumps straight to Switzerland's snow-capped Alps, master craftsmen hunched over tiny workbenches, generations of know-how going into each timepiece. It's a romantic image, carefully cultivated through decades of marketing. But what if I told you that image is largely a fantasy? That the reality of your Swiss-made luxury watch is very different from what you've been sold? The way Chinese manufacturers are pulling back the curtain on the luxury watch game right now is wild. What used to be hush-hush rumors are now full-blown confessions. TikTok is flooded with unboxings from factories in Shenzhen. They're done playing it quiet. And the tea they're spilling? It's scalding hot. One factory worker posted a video showing hundreds of Swiss watch dials being mass-produced. Another showed entire assembly lines of luxury watch cases that look identical to ones selling for thousands at authorized dealers. These aren't low-quality fakes, they're high-end components coming off production lines in massive quantities.
95% of the world's watches are made here, including the one you're wearing right now. Many big brand watches are produced or sourced for parts from here. This place is Shenzhen City, the world watch capital city. And in Shenzhen, you must not miss this factory.
Asking y'all should receive. Tisa, where are the watch manufacturers? I did some digging and I found the watch manufacturers. There is a new scandal coming out of the luxury watch division. Listen, if you want to keep going to Rolex, if you want to keep going to AP and spending your money, go and do that. However, industry insiders are coming out, and I have their videos. People have even been fired from it for lifting the hood away from the...
The Swiss can't sweet talk their way out of this one. Too much has come to light. It's messy, it's loud. And honestly, it's embarrassing for an industry that's built its entire reputation on exclusivity and European craftsmanship. Things got so intense that Rolex had to publicly announce a major price drop on some of their prized pieces. People are stunned. The brand that never goes on sale, the one that has waiting lists years long, suddenly cutting prices? Something big is happening behind those polished boutique windows. But before we dive into all the juicy receipts, loopholes, and drama, let's hit rewind for a second and talk about the real heart of this chaos. Time to take a trip back to the real watch capital of the world. Spoiler alert, it ain't Switzerland. You probably grew up hearing that the best watches come from Switzerland, right? That tiny European country that somehow became synonymous with precision timekeeping, the place where brands like Rolex, Omega, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet have their headquarters. But here's the thing, headquarters don't necessarily mean factories, and Switzerland's population of just 8.7 million people simply doesn't have the workforce to produce the millions of luxury watches sold every year. Something doesn't add up. I did some digging and found the watch manufacturers in Shenzhen. There's a new scandal coming out of the luxury watch division that's shaking the foundations of this prestigious industry. Listen, if you want to keep going to Rolex, if you want to keep going to AP and spending your money, go and do that. However, industry insiders are coming out, and I have their videos. People have even been fired for lifting the hood on this operation. We've all seen that image of snowy mountains, skilled old dudes with magnifying glasses delicately crafting each Rolex by hand. Cute image, but it's kind of a fairy tale. The romance of watchmaking is great marketing, but it's not the whole truth.
Most Swiss watches are actually made in China, and the reason that replicas often look just as good as the original is that they are made in the same factory.
They offer a wider range of styles to choose from, maintain strict production standards, and can support customization, starting from just 50 pieces. What? Worry about them are just middlemen? You contact them directly.
Let's talk real talk. Welcome to Shenzhen, China, the actual watch capital of the world. No joke, over 95% of all watches on this planet are made in China, and a massive chunk of them are pumped out of Shenzhen alone. This sprawling metropolis is home to thousands of factories specializing in everything from cases to movements, dials to bracelets. It's a watchmaking ecosystem that dwarfs anything you'll find in Switzerland. The scale is mind-blowing. While Swiss manufacturers might make thousands of pieces a year, Chinese factories can produce hundreds of thousands in the same time frame, and the quality, that's where things get interesting. Most Swiss watches are actually made in China. And the reason that replicas often look just as good as the original is that they are made in the same factory. Not similar factories, the exact same ones. These factories offer a wider range of styles to choose from, maintain strict production standards, and can support customization starting from just 50 pieces. What you need to worry about are just middlemen. You can contact them directly. In districts like Fujian and Luohu, there are entire buildings dedicated to watch production. The manufacturing capabilities are staggering. CNC machines cutting cases with micron precision, automated assembly lines testing water resistance, and quality control stations that would make Swiss watchmakers jealous. And no, we're not just talking about fake knockoffs. We're talking top-tier materials, high-end dials, polished bracelets, sapphire glass, ceramic bezels, everything. These are real-deal parts made in massive volumes that Switzerland just can't compete with. Let's break it down component by component. Cases, precision machined from 316L stainless steel, the same material used by luxury brands. The finishing quality can be indistinguishable from Swiss-made pieces. Dials, multi-layered, sunburst finishes, applied indices, all the hallmarks of luxury watches. Sapphire crystal, scratch-resistant, anti-reflective coating perfectly fitted to the case, movements, everything from basic automatics to sophisticated chronographs and tourbillons, bracelets, solid links, screwed pins, polished center links, and deployant clasps that operate with that satisfying click.
Watches come in different sizes. A small dial makes your wrist slimmer, while a larger one makes you a stronger error. First of all, you need to determine your budget range. The Rolex Data Jet is the best choice for cost-effective.
I'm going to Fire Herald. Why? The watch is a fake.
What's fake about it?
According to the serial number,
it doesn't correspond to that watch.
Here's where it gets really spicy. Some Shenzhen factories are allegedly crafting pieces for heavy hitters like Omega, Tag Heuer, Tissot, and maybe even the actual Rolex supply chain. Think about it, why would luxury brands maintain expensive Swiss factories when they could have components made for a fraction of the cost in China? It's just good business sense. The profit margins are too tempting to ignore. These aren't those obvious knockoff Rolexes from the swap meet. We're not talking about some $30 flea market fakes here. These watches are built with real parts, allegedly from the exact same factories that produce for the big names. The only thing missing? The official Swiss blessing. And here's the wild part, some of these factories are done hiding. They're openly flexing now, even taking custom orders straight from the public. On certain channels you can see factory tours, production processes, and even side-by-side comparisons with retail versions. That means you could skip the fancy boutique and go straight to the plug for your luxury timepiece. No waiting lists, no AD relationship building, no games. Just direct access to high-quality watches at a fraction of the price.
Perpetuals.
You want to start adding Rolex to your collection? These are the 5 cheapest Rolex watches that you can buy right now. First one, we got the 36mm Datejust 16220 with the engine turn bezel, and it's worth around $6,500. The next watch is a 36mm Datejust 16014 with a blue dial and fluted bezel. This one is priced at around $6,200.
But that raises a big question. If your luxury watch is mostly put together in China, why does it say Swiss made on it? Well, let me put you on game. This label is one of the slickest loopholes in fashion history. You see that cute little Swiss-made stamp sitting pretty on the bottom of the dial? The one that screams elite taste, class, and old money vibes? Yeah, it doesn't mean what you think it means. Despite what the luxury brands want you to believe, Swiss-made doesn't mean the whole watch was crafted in some cozy Swiss chalet by a master watchmaker whose family has been in the business for generations. According to Swiss law, only 60% of the value of the watch has to come from Switzerland to earn that label. Let me say that again, value, not the actual product. And guess what counts as value? Branding, marketing, research, even just putting the movement in the case once it lands in Geneva, that's it. The definition of Swiss-made has been revised multiple times over the years. Before 2017, it was even more lenient, only requiring 50% of value to be Swiss. But even with the updated rules, there's plenty of room for interpretation. So imagine this, a factory in Shenzhen builds the Omega case, bracelet, dial, the whole thing, and ships it out nearly complete. Then some guy in Switzerland drops in the movement, buffs it a little, and bam, it's now officially Swiss-made. The movement itself might have components from all over the world, Malaysia, Thailand, China, but as long as it's assembled in Switzerland, it counts as Swiss. And you're dropping $6,000 on something mostly built in China, but rebranded with a Swiss stamp and luxury glow-up, all thanks to that magic marketing sauce and a few fancy finishing touches. This isn't speculation, it's literally how the system works, and it's all perfectly legal. The brands aren't breaking any rules, they're just taking full advantage of the ones that exist. And don't get it twisted, this isn't some brand new scandal. The luxury world has been playing this game for years. It started as whispers on Reddit, leaked its way onto TikTok, and now it's blowing up with insider exposés like it's a full-on true crime series. One former employee said he used to work at a major Swiss watch brand and got canned just for asking too many questions. I'm gonna fire you. Why? The watch is a fake. What's fake about it? According to the serial number, it doesn't correspond to that. He was restoring vintage watches from the 70s and found out tons of parts were already coming from Asia back then. He even dropped photos, bracelets, hands, dials, all straight out of China. And the movement? Sometimes it was Swiss, but sometimes it was just a cheap $5 quartz piece tossed in last minute. Wild. Another industry insider who worked at an authorized service center for multiple luxury brands revealed how many returned watches had parts that didn't match their official specifications. Serial numbers etched with different techniques than the brand officially uses, movement parts from suppliers not listed in official documentation. A former sales rep at a major authorized dealer confessed that staff were trained to never discuss production details with customers. If they ask where the watch is made, pivot to talking about the brand's heritage and history instead. So yeah, this scandal goes way deeper than folks thought. It's been brewing for decades, and the cracks in the facade are finally starting to show. And now you're probably asking, why hasn't the mainstream media blown the lid off this mess? Easy. The luxury watch world is swimming in cash. Big magazines get millions in ad money from Rolex, Omega, Cartier. You think they're about to bite the hand that feeds them? Not a chance. Just flip through any watch magazine, count the ads. It's sometimes more advertising than actual content. One industry insider estimated that a single full-page ad in a major watch publication costs upwards of $25,000. The big brands might take 20 pages per issue. Do the math, that's $500,000 going to these magazines from just one brand. Multiply that by the dozens of luxury watch brands and you can see why no editor is willing to run a story that might upset their advertisers. And the watch bloggers? Even worse, these folks are being flown out to Baselworld, getting gifted watches treated like royalty at brand dinners. Influencers are literally paid to smile, pose, and keep it cute. The perks are insane. All expenses paid trips to Switzerland, Geneva, Dubai. Review watches that mysteriously never need to be returned. VIP access to events. It's a golden handcuff situation. Nobody's risking their next free Rolex to spill the truth. That's why it's up to the underdogs now. YouTubers, TikTokers, and even anonymous factory workers who are done staying quiet. They're the ones pulling back the curtain and showing what's really going down behind all that luxury glitz. They don't have advertising contracts to protect, they're not getting invited to the fancy parties anyway, so they have nothing to lose by speaking the truth. And just when everyone thought Rolex was untouchable, boom! They pulled a move nobody saw coming. They dropped their prices. Not across the board, of course, but just enough to get people whispering, wait, what's going on? Reports from deep in the watch forums and high-end dealers say that certain Rolex models like the Submariner, the GMT Master 2, and some Oyster Perpetuals got price cuts of up to 20% in certain markets. The Submariner date that was retailing for around $10,000 suddenly available for $8,500 at some dealers. The GMT Master 2, Batman dropping from $11,000 plus to under $9,000 in some regions. And guess what? These just so happen to be the same models getting a little too popular in the replica world. Coincidence? Yeah, right. The timing is suspicious to say the least. These price adjustments came right as videos of Chinese factories churning out near-identical submariners were racking up millions of views online. Now don't get it twisted, Rolex didn't blast this out in some flashy campaign. Please, Rolex never goes on sale. They played it smooth and subtle like always. These price drops slid in quietly, handled mostly by authorized dealers in very specific spots. But the watch crowd, they clocked it immediately, especially since this came right after that Chinese expose went viral. The one showing Rolex-style cases and bezels getting boxed and shipped by the thousands straight out of a warehouse in Longgang. When a brand like Rolex, which has built its entire identity on exclusivity and appreciating value, starts cutting prices, something serious is happening behind the scenes. This isn't normal business strategy, this is damage control. While Rolex was busy with their quiet price adjustments, another revolution was happening on the ground. The replica market was evolving at warp speed. The traditional replica market used to be pretty simple, cheap knockoffs with obvious tells: wrong weight, poor finishing, questionable movements. But that's ancient history now. Today's high-end replicas, what insiders call super clones, are in a different league entirely. We're talking about watches built with genuine Swiss movements, sometimes even with authentic parts acquired through the gray market. Cases machined with such precision that only a watchmaker with specialized tools could spot the difference. The quality has gotten so good that there are documented cases of these super clones fooling even authorized service centers. Watches sent in for service, examined by brand technicians, and returned with official paperwork. Let's be real, brands don't just slash prices for fun, especially not Rolex, a brand that lives off hype, exclusivity, and that hard-to-get flex. So, the fact that they made these hush-hush cuts right when their supply chain drama exploded, yeah, luxury fans are stressed because the whole illusion of high fashion depends on mystery, making you crave the thing you can't have. But now that illusion has been ripped to shreds. People are cutting out the middlemen completely. They're tapping into private Telegram chats, WeChat circles, and secret WhatsApp groups. Full-on factories are selling direct, even doing custom luxury builds for a tiny fraction of what you'd pay retail. Here's the real kicker. They're not even calling them replicas anymore. Nah, the game's evolved. Now it's factory, B-grade, homage, same line release, parallel build, or unbranded OEM, original equipment manufacturer. Translation: we made it, but we legally can't say we made it for Rolex. It's giving DH Gate, but way more polished. And it's not just individuals buying these watches. There are rumors of actual gray market dealers mixing authentic and high-end replicas in their inventory. The profit margins are just too tempting. Buy the genuine article for $10,000, sell it for $15,000. Or buy the super clone for $500, sell it for $8,000. Which business model sounds more profitable to you? And get this, a whistleblower even claimed that some Chinese suppliers get leftover materials from real Rolex production orders, and instead of tossing those extras, they finish the job and sell them under the radar. It makes perfect sense when you think about it. Manufacturing runs always produce extras. It's standard practice to account for defects and rejects. But what happens to the perfectly good components that aren't needed for the official order? In theory, they should be destroyed. But in practice, if you've got excess inventory of valuable goods, there's always a temptation to make use of it. These aren't cheap fakes or dupes, they're basically the real thing, just missing that final Rolex blessing. Another insider from a manufacturing facility that produces luxury watch components claimed that identical production lines often run side by side, one for the official brand orders, another for the unofficial market, same machines, same materials, same workers, same quality control standards. The only difference is the paperwork and the final destination. Now let's switch gears and talk money. When it comes to luxury watches, especially brands under giants like Swatch Group, Richemont, and LVMH, the profit margins usually sit around 10% to 20%. That's not pennies, but it's not super villain level either. Now, compare that to the real moneymakers, tech and pharma. Apple's clocking in with a 32% margin, Microsoft, a smooth 38%, And Novo Nordisk, the company behind Ozempic, try 39%. Suddenly that $15,000 Rolex doesn't seem that wild anymore, right? But these figures can be misleading. The 10 to 20% is often the reported net profit margin after accounting for massive marketing budgets, retail networks, and corporate structures. The actual cost of goods sold, COGS, what it physically costs to produce the watch, is a very different story. But hold up, don't go feeling all warm and fuzzy toward Rolex just yet. They're still eating good. And I mean eating. Rolex is out here moving in silence like a private Facebook group. They don't even share financials publicly. Why? Because they're technically a non-profit foundation. Yep, plot twist of the year. The Hans Wilsdorf Foundation owns Rolex. As a charitable foundation, they don't have shareholders demanding quarterly profits or growth. They can play the long game, investing in manufacturing, controlling supply, and maintaining their aura of exclusivity. But just because they ain't flexing like the tech titans doesn't mean they're not stacking serious bread. Industry analysts estimate Rolex produces around 1 million watches per year. At an average retail price of what, $10,000? That's potentially $10 billion in annual revenue. Even with conservative profit margins, we're talking billions in profit annually. And remember, that's just one brand. The luxury watch market as a whole is estimated to be worth over $20 billion annually. And that brings us to the million-dollar question: what does it really cost to make one of these watches? Word on the street from industry insiders is that a watch selling for $6,000 might actually cost around $1,200 to $1,500 to produce. Yep, that's less than 25% of the retail price, and that's before factoring in dealer markups and the luxury tax of just because we can. Let's break down the actual components. Movement, $200-$500 for a decent automatic movement. Case, $100-$300 depending on material and complexity. Dial, $50-$150. Hands, $20-$50. Crystal, $30-$100 for sapphire. Bracelet, $100-$300. Crown and other small parts, $50-$100. Assembly and QC, $100-$200, add it all up, and you're looking at $650, $1,700 in pure material and labor costs. Even at the high end, that's still a fraction of retail pricing. Some brands are a bit more upfront though. Christopher Ward, a UK watchmaker, says they never charge more than 3 times their production cost. Omega, closer to 4x, but Rolex, most experts believe they mark it up a solid 5 times or more. So, while they're not stroking cats in some Bond villain castle, let's not pretend they're just breaking even either. They're still running up big numbers in the name of prestige. You're not just paying for the watch, you're paying for the whole machine behind it. The brand, the marketing, the mystery, the image. You're paying for the Rolex tennis sponsorships, the glossy magazine ads, the boutique in the expensive part of town, the celebrity endorsements. When Roger Federer wears a Rolex during the Wimbledon trophy ceremony, that didn't come free. But let's keep it real. Not everything that looks expensive actually is. That $60 Rolex knock you snag off the gram? Yeah, it might pass in a blurry Insta story, and sure, it can shine under soft lighting as long as nobody zooms in, but let's not kid ourselves. The inside of that thing is basically Dollar Tree with a dream. No shade to the budget queens or the DH Gate divas, but facts are facts. Most replicas cut corners hard. The movement inside? Usually some random no-name part that ticks like a broken metronome. It's nowhere near that smooth, rich sweep you get from a real automatic watch. The seals, trash, zero water resistance. That fake Rolex will fog up just from a humid bathroom mirror. The metal, cheap alloys that'll scratch if you breathe on them too hard. Real 316L stainless steel has a specific weight and feel that's hard to fake. The glow-in-the-dark details, barely there. Proper Swiss Super Luminova has a distinctive glow that cheap alternatives can't match. The weight, way off. A real Submariner has heft to it, usually around 135, 150 grams. Fakes might be 30% lighter. And the finishing? Definitely not hand-polished by some Swiss craftsman in a snowy cabin. The polishing on high-end watches creates a distinctive play of light that cheap replicas can't replicate. But here's where it gets complicated. While the $60 fakes are obvious, what about those $500 super clones we talked about earlier? The ones using genuine Swiss movements and high-quality materials? The gap is narrowing dramatically. Some high-end replicas now use genuine ETA movements, the same ones found in many authentic luxury watches. The cases are machined to precise specifications. The finishing is getting better and better. For the average person, even for many watch enthusiasts, Telling them apart is becoming nearly impossible without opening the case back and examining the movement. I'll tell you one thing. That one thing alone is more than enough for you all to understand why you all should not be wearing a fake. Self-confidence. Once you wear a fake, your confidence is not the same as when you wear an original. Because once you wear a fake and you walk into a place where there's a lot of people who love watches, people who wear the original are going to figure out it's a fake. Once you wear the fake and it gives some light off, there's going to be reflection shown on that. That alone is more than enough, and your confidence level is not the same. There's something to be said for authenticity, not just in watches, but in life. Knowing you're wearing the real thing brings a confidence that's hard to quantify, but impossible to fake. It's not just about what others think, it's about what you know. Every time you look at your wrist, do you see something genuine or something pretending to be something it's not? For some people, that matters a lot. For others, not so much. It's a personal decision. The luxury watch market is changing fast. Brands that once seemed untouchable are facing unprecedented challenges. The internet has democratized information. Consumers are more educated than ever about what they're buying. The mystique is fading, and with it, some of the allure that justified those premium prices. Younger consumers especially are questioning the traditional luxury model. They value transparency and authenticity, not just in the product itself, but in how it's made and marketed. They're less impressed by heritage and more concerned with value. Why pay $10,000 for a watch when you can get nearly identical quality for a fraction of the price? And it's not just about replicas, there's been an explosion of high-quality homage watches from legitimate brands. Companies like San Martin, Pagani Design, and Philida offering Submariner or Royal Oak-inspired designs with solid specifications for a few $100s. They're not pretending to be Rolex or AP. They have their own branding, but they deliver 80% of the experience for 5% of the price. This is forcing the luxury brands to reconsider their positioning. Some are doubling down on exclusivity, making their pieces even more limited and expensive. Others are cautiously exploring more accessible price points. But one thing's for sure, the days of consumers blindly accepting marketing mythology are over. But here's the real question everyone ends up asking once they fall down this rabbit hole. Are luxury watches actually overpriced? And honestly, it's complicated. So, let's unpack it. If you walk into this thinking you're buying pure craftsmanship, innovation, and legacy, you might end up disappointed, because not every luxury watch is the engineering marvel it's hyped up to be. Some of these brands, they're out here piecing together pre-made parts, slapping on a well-known name, doubling the price, and calling it a day. They're banking on reputation, not reinvention. So while some watches are truly built like art, others are just riding the wave of a legendary logo, and that's the game. And it's a big but, once you really know what you're paying for, everything hits different. You're not just buying steel and sapphire glass, you're buying access, you're buying status, you're buying that silent flex, the one where you walk into a room and heads turn just because of what's shining on your wrist. There's value in the brand itself, in its history, its recognition, its cultural significance. A Rolex isn't just a timepiece, it's a symbol. It represents something to both the wearer and the observer. And for many people, that symbol is worth the premium. It's worth knowing that when someone recognizes that crown logo on your wrist, they understand what it represents. That feeling? For some folks, that's priceless. So, is it overpriced? Technically, yeah, but emotionally, that depends on you. Because once you know the truth behind the price tag, the factories, the markups, the marketing, you hold the real power. You get to decide if the hype is worth it. The power is not in the brand, not in the watch. It's in you. If you vibed with this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below with your wildest watch tea, and I'll catch you on the next one.